Here's the headline from the Wall Street Journal. Paramount Skydance prepares Ellison-backed bid for Warner Brothers Discovery. I'm reading here from the Wall Street Journal. Paramount Skydance is preparing a majority cash bid for Warner Brothers Discovery that is backed by the Ellison family. The bid will be for the entire company, including its cable networks and movie studio, the people have said. Warner said late last year it planned to restructure into two operating divisions, one focused on legacy cable television business and the other on streaming and studios. Warner Brothers had a nearly $33 billion capitalization early Thursday prior to the Wall Street Journal's report, more than double that of Paramount Skydance. A bid hasn't yet been submitted, and the plans could still fall apart, end quote. I love that they went to great pains. David Zaslav and the Warner people went to great pains to restructure into a more appealing acquisition target. Meanwhile, Paramount Skydance is like, we're just gonna buy the whole thing. It doesn't matter. Like you can organize however you want. Doesn't matter. We want everything, and we're gonna give you cash for it. Cash money. This was a shocking bit of news, Patrick Klepek. Primarily because, hey, guys, didn't you just buy a media company, right? Skydance just purchased Paramount, essentially. David Ellison just purchased Paramount. And now he's readying his guns for a fish that's twice his size. And my initial reaction is this would be terrible for Hollywood. It would be basically another studio vanishing. If you're an artist who's out there shopping projects to studios, you now have one less place that's willing to bid on it, one less place that's willing to take chances on something interesting. And also, in the book Cloud Atlas, it foresees like really far into the future where all movies are just called Disney's because of media consolidation. And this acquisition would bring us one step closer to a world where all movies are just called Disney's. Patrick Klepek, what do you think of the possibility of Paramount Skydance acquiring Warner Brothers Discovery?
I mean, it seems like this is a scenario we outlined as Warner moved into this phase. Like, oh, on one hand, Zaslav gets to play with all the cool toys. On the other hand, it would make this a really like, hey, we did all the downsizing, restructured the company, makes a very clean acquisition target.
Yeah. Relatively speaking, yeah.
Right. Easy to imagine, in the short term, does Warner Brothers operate as a label, underneath Skydance, like alongside Paramount? But that is always a distinction without a difference, so to speak. And so I'm with you. Like this, we knew that the slimming down of companies was coming. The like push into streaming was going to have profoundly negative consequences, as everyone sort of realized there are only so many fish, like so many people who can be the big whales in this world. But this, I think, part of what makes this annoying is it feels so deeply calculated. Like it doesn't as though it's coming from, well, Warner Brothers is about to go out of business, like unless like Paramount swoops in and saves them. And so actually, they're doing Hollywood a favor by like saving a beloved brand and like allowing those films to continue. Like Warner Brothers is having a banger year. Like they are dominating, like have a bunch of hits. They moved Mortal Kombat to next year because they have done well enough as a result of movies like the Conjuring Last Rites being like sort of like a shocking, expected to be a hit, but like not a hit to the degree that they were expecting. Like, great, let's make Mortal Kombat a tentpole next year. Like, Superman did better than expected. Like, kind of nudged Fantastic. I mean, Warner Brothers has a lot to be excited about.
They have dominated the last, I'm going to say, 6 months of the box. Like, since Minecraft came out, they've just had hit after hit after hit.
Since an article came out saying if the next spring, summer, and fall of Warner Brothers is not a hit, these movie execs that lined up this stack of films are going to be fired, and Zaslav will put new people in. They rolled like the dice is coming up like like sixes like every single time for them. They have just been on
Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi at Warner Brothers. Like their jobs were under threat.
Literally on the line, and then just like absolute
just
bangers.
Banger after banger. Just banger after banger. The Superman, I think they did Weapons as well.
They did Weapons as well. Now, nobody is concerned that PTA's new movie is going to bomb because it doesn't matter. They've earned the right to have a movie be a critically acclaimed commercial flop because they've stocked up so much money elsewhere. And so this should be a studio like new Superman movie into like the future is bright. Like Zaslav like isn't being talked about. Like what's being talked about is like a really promising slate of like artistically interesting and commercially successful projects, and instead, like capitalism comes for us all, and it sounds like I put my betting money is on this happens. I don't know where you stand on the likelihood of this, but I saw this headline went, this is mere the dance before the agreement happens. I think Warner Brothers
dance.
He's got.
Yep.
I think they're acquired, or at least if it's not before the end of the year, it's like we're just waiting for, the government to just, I guess that's fine, sort of agreement by the end of 2025. But where do you stand on the likelihood of this happening?
First of all, I really liked Josh Billinson's. Josh Billinson is one of the social media people at Semaphore, and he has a great presence on Meta's threads. I always enjoy his spicy acid takes on things, and he said something along the lines of, "Hey, so Larry Ellison, who's David Ellison's father, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's also the founder of Oracle. He recently became the richest man in the world, or he's like depending on which day you look at it, he might be the richest man in the world." And Josh Billison posted something recently along the lines of, it just goes to show you don't need to sell cars or launch rockets to be the richest man in the world. You can just do whatever the guy who's in charge of Oracle does, which I appreciate, because what does Oracle do? Like I've heard it explained to me many times. I still don't really get it.
What's Salesforce?
I refuse to believe that anyone actually uses Salesforce. Anyway, but yes, so Oracle is where a lot of the Ellison family fortune comes from. It's partially how David Ellison is able to bankroll the acquisition of Paramount. I think, Patrick, this is shocking because, I mean, look, on a basic human level, I can't imagine swallowing a sandwich that is twice the size of me, and then after having eaten that, being like, now I want another sandwich that's twice the size of me right now. Which is kind of like Skydance was much smaller than Paramount. They basically acquired Paramount, and now they're like, okay, now we're going to acquire something twice as large as us now, right? And it's like, oh, okay. Like I can't imagine having that level of hunger for acquisitions, but that's why I'm not a multi-billionaire, Patrick. Right? So like,
it's just that if you just wanted to acquire, if you could get into an acquire mentality, David, you'd be good to go.
You got to get into the acquire grind set. But on a human level, I'm just like, isn't this enough? Isn't Paramount enough? Isn't CBS News enough? Isn't Paramount Plus and Showtime enough? But it's not. It's not. I think.
Which would put two major news networks under this company, right? Like you would have CBS and CNN then under the same company. CBS News is currently, all indications point towards a real tilt to the right in terms of the ideological leadership.
100%, 100%. And
I feel the same thing would happen to CNN as a result.
Right. To answer your question about whether this will happen, my guess is they were able to get this Skydance acquisition through, and maybe during the course of that, they learned what they feel is necessary to get a similar acquisition through. Theoretically, something like this should draw antitrust scrutiny. I don't think it's gonna, though. I have a feeling,
as long as you promise to oust CNN leadership and put in place far right figures that will tilt the ideology. Like the thing that Trump wants is the media to praise him and back him. So I think literally CNN is a tiny little part of what you'd be acquiring in the Warner family, and yet is probably the most important cog in getting the deal to go through, because it's not about antitrust. It's about flattery to the authority.
We have seen that we have a government that trades in favoritism and other things like that, where if you have a good, it's more about the relationship rather than any kind of adherence to legal principle.
Correct.
And so it does seem like there's a possibility that, hey, they got the Skydance thing to go through. They're like, hey, we're feeling potent. We're feeling like we can do anything. Why not go for it all? Why not go for CNN and HBO, the whole kit and caboodle, and dominate the media landscape, right? I mean, they are already power players in the media landscape. They're already extremely influential, and this would increase their influence even more. And I mean, I do think it's notable that they think that is useful to them, right? It's notable that they think that like there's something to that. These are not necessarily, a lot of these assets are not necessarily huge revenue / profit drivers, but they're like, hey, it makes sense for us to own it all, and that's just something to consider. Like, ask yourself why they would feel that is important, and just something to consider. But if I had to bet on whether this is going to happen, you seem to think it's like 80-90%. I'm going to say 65%. Because I think a lot of stuff can happen between now and then. But I think you're right that it's more likely to happen than not. And if it does, that will be really sad. Like, I'm not going to be too romantic about it, but I think it's going to make the amount of art that we get, the diversity of art that we get, it's going to lower those things, and I think that will ultimately be bad for our culture. So
Warner as a label as opposed to a studio, those are really different things, and it would be sad to lose that.
Yeah, like look at what's happened to like Fox Searchlight, in the wake of the Disney acquisition. They're still putting out, it's not like they went away, they're still putting out movies, but it's just like, it feels like it's not the same as it used to be, right? There's not as many Slumdog Millionaires coming out these days. I mean, for sure, of course, we're in a different world. That's a bad example, but like,
no, but it's what you're getting is better to have competition between the studios as separate entities than competing with one another within the same corporate structure. Like that is not going, like that doesn't lead to better films, more like bigger risks. Like, and I think that's one thing you lose as a result of becoming a small fish, or in a bigger pond, but you're all in the same pond. At least they're in separate. At least we're in separate ponds right now, and occasionally we all get into the ocean together.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see what happens, but that's the news about Paramount Skydance trying to acquire Warner Brothers Discovery. Could still fall through. Fingers crossed it does. All right. Hey everyone, David Chen here. Thank you so much for watching that video from Decoding TV. If you want to get an audio version of the show, all you got to do is go to podcast.decodingtv.com. And if you want to support what we do, get ad-free episodes of the podcast and also bonus episodes of the podcast, go to decodingtv.com and become a paid member. Of course, you can also like and subscribe for more. We appreciate it. Thanks. See you later.